Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'm nervous speaking into the microphone. My name is Eve, and I was born and raised here in Madison on the Near East Side. I don't think I ever saw a police officer growing up. And now I live about 2 miles from here, so this is my community, and I definitely want to speak up. I can't speak for the people who left the room, but I can speak to them that they had something else that they had to get to. And I just want to say that I support them, and I follow the lead of Young, Gifted, and Black folks. And I'm white, and I'm doing my best to be an ally. And so I look to Black folks to provide that leadership and not speak for them, of course. So we have an 8-to-1 racial disparity in Dane County's arrest rates, and that is a structural problem. That's a structurally racist problem, and that means that we need structural answers and structural solutions. So I'd like to hear what you propose for those structural changes in order to dismantle racism.
A couple of things here. First, that I think bears some discussion. First of all, with the ratios, I know that we are hearing an awful lot about the focus on who's being arrested, as we should. As we should. I'm not trying to minimize that at all. But I also feel that it's time that I spoke for victims. And what I'm talking about is that when you have a demographic base of 6% African Americans, and they account for 32% of those victimized, that too is out of whack, sideways, and disproportionate. And I want to remember our victims. Because when people say, why are you doing what you're doing, which offenses, which violations, which victims do you want to say, your case really doesn't matter as much as this case? Do you want us to just basically forfeit those people who have had property crimes committed? Burglaries, I think, are intensely invasive in terms of the property that's taken, but moreover the sanctity of the home that is also violated. Which crimes? If you give me a list and we can develop a consensus, we can have an adult dialogue about that. I think I actually started the dialogue by saying perhaps we should examine possessory drug crimes. I'm willing to go there. I don't see a lot of people coming with me. I don't see a lot of legislative support. It's not exactly vogue to be a police chief and have that kind of discussion. It's not because I'm afraid. So I just want to say that relative to the terms that are being bandied about here, the other thing is that yes, we're the gatekeepers to the criminal justice system. But a cop's word, their report, and their testimony in and of itself isn't going to be prosecuted if there's not probable cause. There's not going to be a conviction unless there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Those issues are beyond the pale of us as an intake to the system. So there's a lot of things going on here besides the police in the criminal justice system. I actually do have some profoundly hopeful news to report though tonight. Captain Ballas, many of his neighborhood officers are eagerly awaiting, probably around April, when we're going to be an active participant at a groundbreaking level of a restorative justice court right here in the South Side. It's a real pause for optimism. And I think what's profound about it is that for the first time we are trying to do a paradigm shift in how we deal with offenders and treating them differently than what's been the default mechanism by ticket, arrest, and onto the brick and mortar solution. That's what's encouraging. What will be happening is that literally the same group or the demographics that we described earlier, the 17 to 25-ish-year-old folks, if our officers here in the South Side find someone who's offended for the first time, a crime, normally, the normal traditional response is that there's probable cause to believe a crime was committed, probable cause that this person committed the crime, you effect the arrest. Well, we're going to detain the person based on that, and they're probably going to be given a court date on a piece of paper that tells them all this, and it'll be all recorded in an officer incident report. But in that interim period of time, if this is a first offender, we're going to be using members of the community that will do two things. One, they're going to make sure that victims understand that holistically that their needs are heard, the community's needs are heard. But moreover, they're going to look at this individual, be contacted by civilians who have the capacity to bring some wraparound services and say, what's the deal? What occasioned this? Was it because there was an alcohol issue on board? Were you high? How about, would you be receptive to an AODA assessment with some treatment modalities? Is it because you needed to steal because you needed to eat? Are you homeless? Let's work on securing a job. Let's work on getting your GED. Let's look at some options here, because you didn't just decide to commit a crime typically randomly or impulsively. Something is predicating that. So then in 3 weeks' time, they come back. Where's it going to be? The Village or Mall?
The order will be at the South District. Ron Johnson's office is at Central Hispano.
Ron Johnson will be at Central Hispano. He sort of moderates it. He's not a cop.
Dane County Human Services.
Dane County Human Services, thank you. And basically, the offender will be offered a choice. We are prepared to give you the kind of skills and tools that can help you help yourself. That's behind door number one. And if you decide that you don't want those services, which is your prerogative, or more importantly, you do not follow through on the community's sense of what's appropriate, well then, regrettably, we do have the default. We can do a booking sheet and we can go to jail. But if you participate, and I hope you do, and it's successful, for the first time, that individual is not going to even be entered into CCAP. They won't be labeled as ever having been arrested because we're looking at this. Now it's going to have to start with baby steps. But I'd like to think that after we deal with the first offender with some time and with some positive validation that it's working, we can expand it to the more benign property crimes, the simple thefts or things like that, for people who have a record. So you can look at it as we have sort of heard tonight, that it is a sad commentary and indictment on sort of a very abysmal statistic for our county, for our city. And I want to be clear, to the extent that the police are culpable as the gatekeepers to the system, I'm not trying to absolve us of anything. We have to own that which we create. But I'm suggesting that beyond the pale of what we're doing or not doing well enough are a lot of other issues and a lot of positive things that are happening. If I could bring with you each day, I get a stack like this from citizens who have emailed our website, called in and left a recorded message, all of whom are literally telling us about officers doing completely random acts of generosity, kindness, and compassion, and it would make your heart swell with pride because they are public servants in the truest sense of the word. But as is the nature of the human condition, it's much easier to default to that which is, frankly, inappropriate, shows wrongdoing, and puts the police in a bad light. I have said from the get-go that any group, whether it's dentists, doctors, lawyers, clergy, cops, I would suggest that probably 95% or better of any group you care to itemize, they are meeting and exceeding those standards which we as a society hold dear. And like any demographic group, we probably have that 3 to 5% for whom all the negativity can generate. And in some departments, the bigger ones, I do think that you have to be mindful that there is a pervasive, insidious culture of cops that take care of cops, and it's difficult to be relational when you're constantly protecting and defending your turf. I don't mean to be self-serving, but we have 455 officers of very, very diverse backgrounds, spread out over 5 districts, soon to be 6 districts, I hope. And the reality is that we don't have that sort of pervasive, insidious, cancerous culture here in Madison. We just don't. And I really, at the end of the day, at my age, I really don't care how the community defines my legacy, but I care deeply about the legacy that is the Madison Police Department that's been entrusted to my care. And I'm going to defend this department to the utmost because I love it, I believe in it, and I believe our mission and our values are spot on, and I'm unapologetic about that mission. We will continue to do better. We are 455 cops, and as the top cop in this group, I will be the first to say, I have feet of clay. I am going to make mistakes. There are things that I will not be proud of because perhaps an insensitive word or phrase, or perhaps I didn't understand, made the wrong decision, and I will own that at the end of the day. But I also think it's interesting that when I read, as I teach law classes to our academy, when I see the dynamics that lead to Supreme Court case holdings, where issues that are occurring dynamically in the middle of the night, and officers are, with little or no backup, are being asked to make compelling decisions in a heartbeat, are then litigated for years through dozens of courts and just as many law clerks and judges who have the benefit of 20/20 hindsight, and I say, you know what? The real practitioners that bring the law to fruition are the officers in the field that have to make these difficult decisions. So, it may not be the message that everybody heard, and some will view me as nothing but a spin doctor. That's your prerogative, but I'm very proud of the Madison Police Department.
You didn't answer the
We're not
question.
leaving any neighborhoods.
You didn't answer the question.
Which question is that?
What are you going to do about the systemic racism that starts with the Madison Police Department?
Ms. Conkle.
That's after people have been arrested. That's after people are in the system.
Throughout the day, I've tried to identify the fact that neighborhood officers are trying to be relational and to be preemptive and collaborative with social workers, with Dane County Social Services, with school districts, with mental health practitioners. We're trying to avoid the brick and mortar solution. We're trying to be preemptive so that we don't have to introduce it. Pardon?
Then why aren't you?
We are trying. We are making that attempt every day.
Are you responsible for the 8-to-1 incarceration rate? Are you responsible, and do you think it's insidious?
Do you want me to answer the
Well,
question?
it's up to you, you're the chief, he's out, we have a question waiting over here, and we had a system here, it's up to you if you want to take that question.
Briefly, I think we are all, the police, the school system,
Do you take responsibility for
We
the
are all
8-to-1
complicit.
incarceration rate?
we
Yes
are
or
all
no?
complicit, but not singularly so. No, sir.
You're not responsible.
Not singularly so. No, sir.
Do you think it's insidious?
I do. I've said as much.
And what are you going to do different?
Yeah.
I don't think that I have to respond to you, Brenda, because I think I'm trying to follow some decorum here.
But I've been to 4 of these forums where you've been asked the same question and you've never answered it.
I'm
What is
sorry,
going to be
I have
different?
been responsive. I'm sorry if it isn't the answer you want to hear.
You're, there you go.
It is what it is, Brenda.